In my research and studies, I came across a rather controversial piece of information that stated we were God all along. I know it sounds like something from a crazy person, but as I delved deeper into the subject, I realized that it all makes sense. Look around you. If you pay close attention, you will notice that we have always lived in a matrix. To start understanding better, imagine the following. You are in school and decide to become a specialist in a certain field, such as medicine, engineering, law, or philosophy. Society values this specialization because we need people who deeply understand specific subjects to solve complex problems. After all, you wouldn't go to a lawyer for surgery, right? But what if there comes a time when we need to rethink this extreme specialization? Our history shows that, in certain periods, it was crucial to divide knowledge into specific areas to advance technologically and socially. However, this does not mean that this division will always be the best approach. Lately, I have been reflecting on how our worldview can change rapidly. I realize that our understanding of reality is constantly evolving. When we read, study, and experiment, our ideas transform, and it is natural for us to revise our previous beliefs. And this change of perspective leads us to question, are we becoming too attached to specializations and losing sight of the holistic view of things? In other words, by focusing so much on specific parts, are we ignoring the whole, reality, and its signs? So, to reach a better understanding, we need to address signs. When I talk about signs, I am referring to the words, symbols, and concepts we use to understand and communicate our reality. They are like tools we create to help us navigate the world. Think about this. Everything you know about the world is mediated by signs. From the words you use to describe an object to the most complex concepts in science, everything is a representation of reality, not reality itself. For example, when you see the word tree, you are not seeing a real tree, but a mental representation of what a tree is. The problem arises when we start to confuse these signs with reality itself. We give so much value to our representations that we forget they are just a way to try to capture something much more complex. It's like, instead of admiring the beauty of the sunset, we become obsessed with a photo of it. An interesting example comes from Buddhism, where there is a saying that the mind is an organ of sense, just like the eyes or the ears. This means that the mind creates a representation of the world, but this representation is not the real world. Believing that our thoughts are reality is like imagining that sounds are formed inside the ear. Bringing this idea into our current world, we realize that even though modern physics has shown that many of our intuitive notions about the universe are wrong, we continue living as if they were true. For example, quantum physics shows us that reality is much more complex and uncertain than we imagined. Yet, we still insist on seeing the world in a simplistic and linear way. We've talked about signs and representations. Now it's time to see how our perception and consciousness shape the reality around us. This might sound crazy, but it's precisely where modern physics and some Eastern philosophies converge. Think about it. When you look at the world, what do you see? Everything we perceive passes through our senses and is interpreted by our brain. But have we ever stopped to think that perception itself is a creative act? When you observe something, you are not just recording an external reality. You are, in a way, creating that reality in your mind. Quantum physics, for instance, presents us with the famous double-slit experiment. Essentially, when we are not observing, particles behave like waves and can pass through two slits simultaneously. But the moment we start observing, these particles decide to pass through a single slit, as if they were solid particles. It's as if the simple act of observing forces reality to take on a definite form. This leads us to a profound question. To what extent is our consciousness really shaping the universe around us? It may sound crazy, but there is a school of thought that suggests reality only becomes real when it is observed. In other words, our consciousness is an active participant in creating the world we perceive. Now, let's connect this with Eastern philosophy, especially Buddhism. As I mentioned earlier in this video, Buddha said that believing thoughts are formed inside the head is as mistaken as believing that sounds are formed inside the ear. In the Buddhist view, the mind is a sense organ, like the eyes and ears. This means that the mind not only perceives reality, but also creates it. Thoughts are like waves in the ocean of consciousness. And what does this mean for us in our daily lives? It means that we are constantly co-creating reality. Our perception, beliefs, and thoughts directly influence the world around us. If we face the world with fear and distrust, that is what we will see reflected back. If, on the other hand, we cultivate a more open and positive view, our reality will also transform. Sure, all of this may seem quite abstract, but think about the advances that science has made over the centuries. Many of our intuitive notions about the universe have been challenged and overturned. We used to believe that the Earth was the center of the universe, that time was a constant, and that matter was made up of small, indivisible blocks. Today, we know that space and time are relative, that matter is made of particles that can be in multiple places at once, and that the observer plays a crucial role in defining reality. Now, let's talk about how our memory and perception of time influence the way we live and understand reality. Get ready, because this is going to blow your mind. First, think about how we perceive time. Normally, we imagine time as a straight line with the past behind us, the present where we are now, and the future ahead of us. But does time really work like that? Modern physics suggests that time is a continuous dimension, more like a fabric than a line. Now, combine this idea with our perception. Our memory gives us the sensation that the past is fixed and immutable. We remember events as if they were carved in stone. But the truth is that our memories are incredibly fallible. Each time we remember something, we are actually recreating that memory, mixing facts with current interpretations and emotions. Our mind speculates about the past in the same way it speculates about the future. And here is the interesting point. Our ability to predict the future is based on the same cognitive function we use to remember the past. This means that, in terms of mental processes, remembering and predicting are very similar activities. An interesting example of this is the idea of retrocausality. In some interpretations of quantum physics, there is a suggestion that future events can influence the present just as the present influences the past. This challenges our linear understanding of time and opens up the possibility that reality is much more interconnected than we imagine. Think about it. If time is not linear and our memories are speculations about the past, what does that mean for our identity? The way we understand who we are is based on our memories. But these memories are malleable and can change with new information and experiences. Therefore, our identity is also fluid, always in transformation. And here is the big insight. If our perception of time and our memories are so flexible, then our reality is too. This gives us immense power over our lives. We can reassess our past experiences in new lights, reinterpret events, and thus change our perspective and our future. Now, let's discuss how we interact with the environment and how this interaction transforms us, both individually and as a society. Let's start with a simple reflection. Who are we? From childhood, we are shaped by our environment, family, culture, education. But what we might not realize is that, at the same time, we are shaping that environment. It is a two-way street. When we transform our surroundings, they transform us in return. Consider this. Human evolution is not just a matter of adapting to the environment, but also of actively transforming it. We do not just survive in nature, we modify it to meet our needs. We build cities, develop technologies, and create social and economic systems. And each of these changes influences who we are and how we live. For example, think about the Industrial Revolution. Before it, most people lived in rural areas, working in agriculture. With industrialization, cities grew, and urban life became dominant. This not only changed the physical landscape, but also our way of thinking, our social relationships, and even our values. This phenomenon is clear evidence that human nature is adaptable and mutable. We are not fixed entities living in a static world. We are dynamic beings in constant interaction with an environment that is also continuously changing. And here is a powerful idea. If we understand that we are part of an ongoing process of transformation, we can begin to see the possibilities for personal and collective change. We are not stuck in our current circumstances. Just as we can transform the environment around us, we can also transform ourselves. Modern physics shows us that reality is paradoxical and complex, and this complexity is reflected in our own existence. We are, at the same time, both product and agent of transformation. This gives us an active role in creating our future. Now, think about how this idea applies to your own personal growth. Every time you learn something new, change a habit, or face a challenge, you are transforming yourself. And by doing so, you are also transforming the world around you. It is a continuous dance between you and the environment, between what is and what can be. Let's continue our line of thought and now dive into the intersections between science, society, and economy. These areas are deeply interconnected, and understanding this connection is crucial to comprehending how we shape our reality and how it shapes us back. Throughout history, our scientific understanding has always influenced how we organize our societies. The scientific revolution of the 17th century, for example, brought about a radical change in how we perceive the world. Before that, knowledge was largely based on religious and philosophical dogmas. With the rise of the scientific method, we began to value empirical observation and experimentation. This advance was not just an intellectual revolution, but also a social and economic one. Science produced technologies that transform the environment we live in. Think about the invention of the steam engine, which drove the Industrial Revolution. Factories began to emerge, cities grew, and industrial capitalism began to consolidate. Here is the crucial point. Science is not just a set of theoretical knowledge. It has practical implications that affect our daily lives. And these implications often shape social and economic structures. Capitalism, for example, can be seen as an economic manifestation of modern science. It is based on the idea of continuous progress, technological innovation, and efficiency. But this progress comes at a cost. As technology advances, society changes, and not always for the better. Industrialization brought economic growth, but also inequality, pollution, and labor exploitation. These transformations create new challenges that we need to address. Now, with the advent of artificial intelligence and quantum computing, we are on the brink of another major transformation. Big tech companies like Google and Amazon are developing increasingly sophisticated algorithms that personalize our consumption experiences, influence our decisions, and even shape our perceptions. Imagine a future where artificial intelligence is so advanced that it can predict and influence our actions with almost total precision. This would fundamentally change how we live and relate to each other. These advances bring up an important question. How do we balance the transformative power of science and technology with the need to preserve our humanity? We cannot allow our technological creations to dominate our lives to the point where we lose our ability to make autonomous and ethical decisions. And this brings us back to our discussion about signs and representations. When we place more value on the systems we create than on the realities they are supposed to represent, we risk disconnecting from the essence of what it means to be human. In the end, it is crucial to recognize that science, society, and economy are not separate entities. They are intertwined, each influencing and being influenced by the others. Understanding this interconnection is vital for creating a more balanced and sustainable future. Now it's time to bring together everything we've discussed so far and reflect on our role as co-creators of reality. If we understand that our perception of the world is shaped by signs and that our memories are fluid constructions, we can begin to see that reality is not something fixed. Instead, it is something we are continuously creating and recreating. This gives us immense power, but also great responsibility. The idea that you were God all along is not about arrogance, blasphemy, or literalism, but about recognizing our potential for transformation. If we are active participants in the creation of our reality, then we have the power to shape our lives and the world around us in a conscious and intentional way. Think about how every decision you make, every action you take, influences not only your life, but also the lives of those around you and ultimately society as a whole. When we act with empathy, responsibility, and vision, we create a positive impact. When we act carelessly or selfishly, the impact can be destructive. This perspective puts us in a position of great human potential. We are not mere passive spectators of a pre-existing universe. We are co-authors of this grand cosmic narrative, and with this power comes great responsibility, as Uncle Ben famously said. For example, consider how our consumption choices affect the environment. Every time we choose sustainable products or support ethical companies, we are voting with our money for a better future. Similarly, by educating ourselves and others, we are planting seeds for a more informed and conscious society. Moreover, this understanding calls us to question established structures that may no longer serve the common good. This means reevaluating economic systems, social practices, and even our own beliefs. We do not need to accept the status quo as something immutable. We can imagine and work towards a more just, equitable, and sustainable world. So, how can we start living more consciously and intentionally? Consider investing time to understand who you are, your beliefs, and your values. Continuous education is also fundamental. Never stop learning. Read, study, and question. Education is a powerful tool for transforming yourself and the world. Always reflect on the impact of your actions. Ask yourself how your choices affect not only you, but also the past and future of society and the planet. Cultivating empathetic and connected relationships is also essential. Solidarity and mutual support are crucial for building a more humane society. Use your imagination to envision a better future. Creativity is a powerful force for innovation and change. And finally, remember that the reality we live in today is a reflection of the actions and decisions made by us and those who came before us. Similarly, the future will be shaped by what we do now. If we embrace our role as conscious co-creators, we can build a world that reflects our highest values and our boldest dreams. Subscribe to our channel and be sure to watch the video that is now on the screen.